all my beautiful listeners. My name is Larissa Sowen, and I welcome you to I Wrote That with my guest today, Arabella, the author of The Mark of Chaos and Creation. So she's here to tell us all about her journey as an author, what it took to get here. I believe she's also an award-winning author, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And then at the very end, stick around because she does have a freebie for you and an exciting announcement. So welcome, Arabella.
Hi, and hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us about your book, like right off the bat. How did you get into, I'm guessing, fantasy, high fantasy, low fantasy? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so I've just kind of been a fantasy sci-fi nerd since I came out of the womb. I've just always just felt so drawn to it. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's always felt to me like the world that we live in is just so mundane, like it's missing something. Like, I don't know if you've ever felt that way, but
Totally.
like I've always just had this extreme love for things that are strange or fantasy or weird or just anything that's kind of out of the norm. So I, of course, grew up watching like Disney movies and stuff like that. And then do you remember when the very first Spider-Man movie came out with Tobey Maguire?
Totally. Yeah.
For some reason, that movie like just did something for me. I don't know. I love superheroes too, but it's not so much even like a fantasy movie, it sort of is, but it really inspired me. And Lord of the Rings kind of came around. It was a little bit further after the Spider-Man movie, but when Lord of the Rings came out and those type of movies were starting to hit the scene, like it really, really inspired me. So I actually have like handwritten like Lord of the Rings and Spider-Man fan fiction that I did when I was in middle school. And it's interesting. I had my English teacher in 7th grade like spotted my talent for writing, and I swear if it wasn't for him, like I probably wouldn't be a writer today, because he was like, there's something so like you have a voice in your writing. And like this was like 7th grade writer, so like it wasn't good, but I think he like saw that like innate thing that I have, which is a writer's voice, right? It's so hard to define, it's hard to teach, it's hard to like recreate. And for whatever reason, it's just something that I innately have as a good voice in my writing. And he had seen that and kind of like brought it to my attention and nourished it. And when I published the book, I actually went back to the same school where I went, where he taught, where he's still teaching, and I gave him a signed copy. And it was just really great to kind of like bring it full circle. But that's really where it started. And so I spent quite a few years, like 4 years, studying craft and storytelling and like all the real technical bits before I ever sat down to write the book. And it took me quite a long time. I wrote the first book. It took almost a whole year to write it. And I think it was like almost 200,000 words. It was humongous.
Wow.
Big dumpster fire of a draft. But I finished it. So it was the first book that I ever finished. And then I rewrote that. The second one was better. And it took me less time, a little bit less time. I think that one took me like 7 months. I don't know, but it took me a long time. And then I was like, right when I finished that second rewrite, something clicked and I had like this amazing idea. And I was like, oh, this could make the book like so high concept, like so amazing. And so I rewrote it again. Like the second I finished that second rewrite, I rewrote it again. And so that third rewrite is what eventually did become The Mark of Chaos and Creation in the published version that it became. So that's kind of the funny story to it. It just, that was just the path that I had to take to get it there. But it taught me a lot. I think in total it took me like 8 years to finally get the book published, from when I started studying craft to when I published the book. Like it took me so long. And I know a lot of writers like really relate or struggle with like the perfectionist angle of it, to where like you really want like your debut to be so perfect and so amazing. And that's kind of what I was fighting against a little bit. And so I knew I had to just be like, okay, I have to just pick a date and be done with it. Thankfully, like I had a really great developmental editor. She's actually one of the dev editors for Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn. She was such a genius. Like I love her. She's editing the second book to the sequel, and she's just has such a well of knowledge and of storytelling. Like she is just amazing. And so she was super helpful in really teaching me a lot about storytelling. And that's on top of all the stuff that I had already known. Like I know a lot about storytelling, about plotting, character, theme, craft, all of this stuff that goes into creating a story, or what makes good stories work, or why a certain formula works when others don't, and all this stuff. And I'm still learning, obviously, and learned a lot with the second book too, with the sequel that's now in edits. And so yeah, it's definitely a journey. I think it's something that you're never going to be like, I'm done learning. That's never going to happen. You're constantly going to be learning new things and new techniques and new ways to make your stories better. But I'm just one of those people, like, I love story. I love to tell a good story. I love to watch and to read and experience a good story. And I feel like it's so important to society to have this art in this medium out in the world. And I just want to be a facilitator of that. So it's just something that really gets me excited. I'm just a big nerd. Kind of goes back to your initial question of like, why do you love fantasy? When did you love it? It's just, I always have. And it's kind of the same for storytelling. They're kind of like one and the same to me. However, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but yeah.
I think you write what you like, right? Like what you want to see. So being, kind of born and raised from the womb into fantasy and sci-fi, why wouldn't you write in that genre, right? Because I'm guessing, like me, are exposed to it on so many levels. It's what you seek out, it's what you enjoy, it's what you immerse yourself into those worlds. And then slowly this kind of whole forms of like, they're missing something could be here. And it clicks that you're the person to write that story. That, that's your hole to fix, kind of a thing. So that's really cool. That's very cool. It's also really nice to hear that, a middle school teacher spotted your talent so early on, because I think a lot of us don't have that. I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of authors, that their middle school journeys are so different. They hear they're not good. They're not good at spelling. They're not good at grammar. Their stories don't have structure. And it breaks their spirit at such a young age. And they have to go through this trial and tribulation to become the authors that they know they're meant to be. Right. So that's very, very cool. Let's talk about your developmental editor. So there's 4 different styles of editing. And I think developmental, especially in the sci-fi realm, is so important. Of course, proofreading and line editing is important as well, but developmental editing is a different breed of editing that I think a lot of us can take for granted. So what was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was amazing. So like, it was like, I'm laughing because like the phrase that I just thought of was kind of like, it was like written in the stars, kind of the way that I found her, because when I was looking for my developmental editor, I wanted someone who would know more about story than me, because like I had just mentioned, I knew a lot and I wanted somebody to elevate me, to elevate me, to teach me, to guide me, to make me a better writer at the end versus what I was in the beginning. And that's kind of a tall thing to ask, like from someone who spent a lot of time with the developmental side of storytelling, because that's really what I specialize in and that's what I teach. So when I was looking for her, I found her, and I'm paraphrasing, but her thing basically said, I'm so far into my career at this point that I'm very selective about projects. So basically don't expect to be picked. I'm very picky. And I sent I sent her like a sample. I don't even remember how long it was, not long, but within 4 hours we had signed the deal and it was
Wow.
done. Like she just, for whatever reason, like she saw the novel and she like saw what it could be, and she loved it and connected with the story and everything. And so when she finally got it and we went through it, and her like package that she gave me was so detailed, and it really went through everything from comp titles all the way down, like from theme and character and plot and all of these things that was just specifically tailored for me and my novel. And so everything that it was missing and done right and all of this, and she gave me suggestions on like craft books to read, which I did, which helped a ton. And I just learned so much. And she kind of, I kind of explained, like when I gave it to her, the book was like a diamond in the rough, and then she really just took all that dirt off and made it like this sparkly diamond that I knew it could be. And yeah, it was just a really great experience. I don't know if the book would be that way without her. So
Okay, so you mentioned craft books. What kind of books did you read to get yourself like to give yourself new perspective? You had 4 years. What was it that elevated for you?
I know, seriously. The one that really helped me was called, I think, the Fantasy Fiction Formula. And so it was geared towards specifically fantasy. And what my biggest takeaway from this book was two things. One was about ending every scene with I don't even know how to explain it. So, you know, like when a scene ends and there's like a question left in the reader or in the character. So they describe it as always like leaving it open-ended. So did the character get what they want? Yes, that's one. No, that's another. Yes, but is another. And no, and because. So there's these four different like ways you can end a scene based on the character's goal of what they wanted when the scene started. Probably didn't explain that very well. But it's basically having the story kind of knitted together with the characters' goals and having what they want, what their purpose is, kind of being like dangled in front of their nose a little bit. Like, sure, yeah, they kind of got what they wanted in the scene, but it gave them a huge consequence. Or no, they didn't get what they want, and they have this other problem they have to deal with on top of it. That type of thing. And then the next thing it really taught me was about what they called scenes and sequels. And it's basically rising and falling action, to where you structure your scenes where it just goes up and down. You have a lot of your rising and then you're falling. And then when you're in that falling action, it's when you have more of that inner monologue thing. Because I struggled a lot with navel gazing in my book when I gave it to my editor. So that was something I really struggled with, kind of having that inner monologue going at stupid times that dragged down the pacing. So that book described it as, okay, when you're going to do that not when the action is at its peak, but when it's coming down, when the characters are reflecting, that's a good time to put that inner dialogue in, and that you do it strategically instead of just having it being in dumb places, which I did.
Mhm. Yeah, like I think that's so cool. The first part is kind of ending with the beginning. So that's what I call it, is you start with a problem, they get there, they have a solution, but there's like that little niggling thing that's left over. There's something new that you've introduced that's going to take you on to the next scene, right?
Yes.
I call that ending with the beginning. Totally love that.
Yeah.
And then the thoughts in your rising actions, like if you think about it as if I were a person. So I'm writing my second sci-fi book right now. She's going into a big battle. her mind is not racing. She is laser focused. She, you see one end in sight, survive. That's your goal. She's not thinking about all of the situations and all the consequences and her friends and her family. No, she is like war. Like, this is my
Yeah.
focus. It's the aftermath. And it's just
Yes.
like us. It's the anxiety of, did I do it right? Could it have been different? All of the things. So it's very humanistic to think that way.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So let's talk about your award. You're an award-winning author. Tell us about that. What happened there?
Yeah, so I had found the website. It was called the Book Fest Awards, and my book had was scheduled to come out September 6th, and I think their deadline was September 1st. So like, if your book wasn't out by September 1st, you couldn't join. But I emailed them and they said, yeah, sure, since it was technically on Amazon by the 1st, that I could throw it in. And so I threw the book in for its category of YA sci-fi, and I threw that in like right before publication day, and then it took months later, and it was so funny because I hadn't heard anything, and so I assumed I didn't place because I didn't hear anything. And then they started releasing the awards, and I think the awards were taking place over 2 days, and I was like, I would have heard something by now. So it was the first day of the awards, and I've obviously I didn't get an email or anything. So I was like, yeah, I clearly, obviously didn't place it. I was like bummed about it. I was so bummed. And then I had seen somebody who I'm mutuals with on Instagram. They got 3rd place in one of their categories, and I was just like, what the heck? And I was so sad. And then on the second day, they kept releasing the awards. Everybody, like, it was all over Instagram, and I had seen something on one of them, and it was like, check your emails for the winners for today. And I was like, no way. And I was like, no, I didn't place. They would have sent me something by now if I had won. And I just had this feeling to go check. And so I looked through my email. I didn't see anything. And so I was like, well, let me just type the Book Fest into my email. And I did. And I had seen that I had actually did win, and they didn't release it until the second day. So nobody knew. Nobody knew until either the first day or the second day. And so I had gotten 2nd place in that category.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Congratulations.
thanks. And so I was just like really surprised. And I remember I saw it, I started to cry because I was just like I said, I had believed I didn't even place at all. And so it was just a big surprise, and it was silly how it kind of how it played out. But yeah, it's definitely an honor. There's a lot of really good books that were entered. It was the only contest that I've ever entered. I should do more, and I will do more in the future. But yeah, it was just really cool to be to win the award so quickly after publication, because it was just a few months. I mean, the book has only been out since September, so it really hasn't been out long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like for listeners, there's a lot of literary awards out there that you can enter for a lot of different genres, a lot of different regions. So definitely be searching out. I know for me, my local library even has awards and things like that you can go through and do. So just search it, right? There's so many categories, so many ways that you can get your book noticed. And the more press you have behind your book, the bigger your launch, the bigger your success, the bigger chance of, the better your second book's going to be. All of it is, is built on the foundation of what you put into it, kind of a thing. So that's very cool. Let's talk about your freebie. You're giving away a free chapter from The Mark of Chaos and Creation, which is going on sale March 15th. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it's going to be the prologue. And I know when people hear the word prologue, they get a little freaked out. But I really love this prologue because we have our main character, Kara, and she's 17 years old, but the prologue takes place when she's 12. And it's the majority of the prologue is an action scene. It is not a giant info dump where a lot of prologues, that's where the prologues get their bad name from, right? It's just a giant, like, this is what happened in the past. And it's just a big dump of information. No, it's definitely an action scene. It's dramatic, it's heartbreaking, and it gives the audience Kara's motivation for what she does throughout the entire book and the entire sequel. And it really is the foundation of her story. It's like her origin story. Maybe a tiny bit of a villain origin story, because Kara is not like your typical Mary Sue MC. She's very much like a gray hero, anti-hero. She is just, she's not like a great person. She is deep down, but she's not. She really struggles with like PTSD and mental health stuff. And so she just wants revenge. Like, it's a revenge story, and she wants to get revenge on what happens in that prologue. And so she has such a fantastic story, and she's such a great character, and I really love her. A lot of people really like her, despite her edge and her not great choices. But I think like the way she's written is like you totally get why she's doing what she's doing, right? And that's why I wrote the prologue, was because I wanted the audience to see from her perspective like what happens in the injustice that happens to her, and why she goes forward with so much obsession throughout the story. Like, she's really seeing, she has like, her motive is very obvious, and she is going for it very clearly throughout the whole thing. And it all generates from that prologue. Yeah.
I personally love a good prologue.
Me too.
I have read the ones that are info dumps and they're hard to get through. I've heard of people that just skip prologues entirely because they're afraid of what they're going to introduce. And but I love a good action prologue. I love when it kind of, like you said, it's that motivation, what drives them, what led to this situation, without being a boring, tell versus show. That's really great. So how can they grab your free chapter, your prologue?
Yeah, so you can head over to my website. It's just www.arabellakfederico.com. That's just my name. And it'll be right there at the homepage, and then on the my novel page, and probably in the sidebar, you'll see it. So as long as you just go to the website, you'll see the link for it, and you just got to click it. You put your email in, and it'll send it right to you. Simple as that.
And yeah, we'll put that link down in the show notes, so you can go ahead and grab it there. And then, get your email in, grab your free prologue, and get in line for your sale, which is happening March 15th, where your book drops down to $1.99, and you'll get an exclusive link in your inbox that day. So really great to get in line for that. Well, thank you so much, Arabella. Is there anything else you want to add? Any tips of wisdom for aspiring writers, perhaps?
Just write the book. I know that seems like super simple and maybe simple and hard at the same time, but I know for me, like, as someone who is like a incessant plotter, sometimes like when I was doing that first plot and that first outline, like, I just couldn't outline the whole thing. And it wasn't until I just wrote the book, as bad as it was, that I finally got over that hump, that biggest hurdle that was preventing me from writing books. And once I got over that, I just soared from there. And so it doesn't have to be perfect. That first draft, that first novel, it can suck, and that's okay. But like, you'll get there, and just keep doing it, and you'll get there. Yeah,
totally. Just start. That's the biggest advice. Just start, get out there, start the work, because your story deserves to be told.
Yeah,
totally. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And be sure to grab her free chapter for her sale on March 15th.